small. What do you mean? That's what they are.
Okay, here's the blitz.
At least not
1,
runs.
2, hitting this guy.
Oh, does he have frenzy?
Of course he has frenzy!
Hey everybody, welcome back to Block, the arguably worst Blood Bowl channel on YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about Skaven, inarguably my favorite team. That was the army I played in Warhammer Fantasy Battles back in the day. I guess what's funny is that I was introduced to these games by people I thought were old guys, and now I'm much older than they were, which I guess makes me the old guy. But really, Blood Bowl is such an old game, and it had such a long life being run by the players, especially through the NAF, that it waxed a little bit older, but I think it has such a great culture. It's one of the reasons I really like Blood Bowl. I like the Blood Bowl guys. It's such a frustrating game that it kind of weeds out poor sports early. And if there's high-level common players that show up that are bad sports, everybody knows it, and it's part of the fun. So, yeah, I want to get into Skaven. I think that they are very much one of the more unique teams, kind of like Lizards, where you have agility differences across your players. You have a very unique play style that combines high speed with low armor. I think they are the fastest team in the game. Arguably, you can say that Wood Elves are pretty quick too, but I think if you add up all of their movement, I think Skaven still beat them out by a little bit. One of the things I like to do with Skaven is take them to big tournaments. I've taken them to the Las Vegas Open and some other big tournaments and ended up getting most touchdowns. Not too hard with Skaven. I didn't win those tournaments just because I was getting 7 touchdowns in one game didn't mean I was going to get enough to win the next game. Sometimes I'd be in those tournaments and get no touchdowns in a game and just get my shit completely kicked in, but that would drop me down a few tables and able to make that up with maybe 3 or 4 or 5 touchdowns the next game. Pretty common with Skaven. When they fold pretty hard. When you are getting those touchdowns in and you can protect those gutter runners, you're going to get a lot of touchdowns, and it feels good to get touchdowns. So I'm going to break into the roster and tell you what I really think about the team, what I think you can give to them, what I think is effective on the tabletop. I think the other thing about Skaven that's really great is that they are cost effective. You don't have a lot of big expensive pieces like maybe Necromantic with werewolves. You can really fit in all these things, and you can play it in different ways. It makes it a really great dynamic team with a lot of options, and I think that's what people really want with all their Blood Bowl rosters, is to be able to not always fit to a cookie cutter roster, but really kind of make it their own. And I think Skaven are a great team to try to do that yourself. Okay, Clan Rat. Very basic piece, costed kind of efficiently at 50k. Could be cheaper, really, for what you're getting, which is basically what is a thrall? I don't think vampires are in here. Yeah, so you're getting, I don't think Skaven Clan Rats are efficiently costed. 50k is kind of a lot for a guy that's really just a screen. They are not as tough as maybe, say, a human lineman who has that 9+ armor. Skaven Clan Rats are kind of the worst case between a Wood Elf lineman and a human lineman. They have the speed that you're looking for that really complements the team, but they don't have the armor that you're really going to want on a lineman. Linemen, I think, in most cases are something you want to kind of throw into tackle zones. They're disposable. Skaven linemen are a little too fragile to do that, and they can't dodge out of those tackle zones. Skaven linemen, you have to think of, is kind of a unique case. You want them kind of flooding the pitch, kind of just being everywhere and in the way to force dodges for your opponent, while you still have the mobility you need to get them where they need to be and not have to dodge out yourself. Really think of Clan Rats as their own special thing, where you're trying to flood the field, create lanes to force your opponents down, and kind of outplay your opponent with lots of things, flooding the pitch. Obviously, the first skill for these guys is going to be block, just like almost every lineman on every team. You can also, if you're worried about it, look into stuff like tackle. You can also take wrestle if you need to. Really, there's no bad pick between those options. Skaven Clan Rats do have access to mutations. You could build them into a block claw player if you wanted to. I don't see the benefit there. I think you're going to put a lot of points on a guy with just 7 armor. But, I mean, you could. The other great thing for Clan Rats that I think you really have to consider is kick. I don't like kick on a lot of teams. I think that it takes up a skill. It's not always that effective. It's kind of a gamble, and you're losing access to block a lot of the times. But man, because gutter runners can get so deep into your opponent's side of the pitch, having the ball start really far back is a big benefit to you, especially when you can use these Clan Rats to flood in to support those gutter runners. So I really like block on everybody, maybe wrestle, and definitely kick on a guy when your gutter runners are developed into a useful piece that can go retrieve that ball. I think I'd get block on the first couple and then start moving into kick on a guy. Remember, kick has to be in the center field. It can't be on the sidelines. So you're kind of losing out on the guy that could be a screening piece. You got to keep him a little further back. Try to put him down with your gutter runners as a kind of a defensive piece. So your opponent's probably doing a 1-die block instead of a 2. And that's really what the kicker is going to be. Maybe even look at your kicker as someone who takes wrestle, plays a bit of a safety position. Kick wrestle, I like a lot. Block on everybody else. Otherwise, Clan Rats are great. Good movement. Kind of expensive at 50k versus something like a Vampire Thrall, which I think is 1 less movement, but 40k. Who else is like that? I don't think anyone else is that cheap with that movement. Yeah, even a Wood Elf Lineman, 70k. Yeah, hell yeah, I'll take it. Orc Lineman, 2 less movement, much better armor. 45 from Imperial Retainer. Fend. I don't mind a 50k. I think it works with the rest of the costs for the team. Because the team is generally kind of cheap, 50k for the lineman isn't a bad pick. Also, something that's important to know is that at 50k, you can look at whether you want a longer bench and maybe get an extra guy, or if you want to get an apothecary. In the case of Skaven, always take the apothecary. 1 more Clan Rat's not going to help you, but being able to save a gutter runner is going to be a huge benefit. So 50k, fine cost for that movement 7, that low armor. You want to keep him out of tackle zones. You want to screen. Moving on to the thrower. When I first started playing Blood Bowl, I loved the thrower. I thought, what a cool piece. I can get the ball and I can get it to my gutter runners. Then in later editions, like 2016, it became clear to me I don't really want to rely on the thrower. Gutter runner picks it up just as well, throws it just as well, and it has all that extra movement. I'd rather get a gutter runner to go get the ball to my other guys. In the current edition, the Skaven thrower might be one of the best throwers in the game. He's only 85, which I think is a downgrade. I think it was just 80 before. But he's got sure hands, is what you're looking for. And he throws on a 2+. With pass, that means he's really lobbing that ball pretty effectively. I think that the game has changed from, do you need a thrower, to, yes, take the thrower. He's a good pick. He's reliable. And now your gunner runners can be more effective offensively because you don't have one in the backfield. So, yeah, I'd take a thrower for sure on this team. I think the other benefit is that you aren't tying up a lot of your scoring efficiency in the backfield, and you're giving yourself more receivers by keeping more gutter runners in the front. Yeah, we got Cannoneer or Accurate, whether you're going to do short or long passes. Obviously, you're going to do Accurate more often, which is going to give you those shorter passes. That's the quick pass or short pass. Cannoneer, because you have so much movement, you shouldn't have to be making those long throws. You should really just be getting the ball, tossing it off to a gutter runner, and then running it. So I'd maybe avoid Cannoneer. Another one that's not real bad here is Dump Off. I think Dump Off is pretty bad for most teams because they're throwing the ball normally on a 3, but because you have that 2+ to pass and -1 for someone in your tackle zone, it's a 3+ throw, and you should have maybe gutter runners available. I don't hate Dump Off. The other thing people will take here is block. I don't like block on throwers. Throwers shouldn't have the ball long enough to be receiving blocks. So, yeah, I'd jump into Accurate or Dump Off first, I think. The other option is you could put Kick on your thrower, but really I think you should focus on a deeper bench. So most of the time when you're kicking, I don't think you should have the thrower on the field at all. You should just keep him safe. So, yeah. Skaven thrower, I like him. I like that 2+ pass. He's one of the few guys that actually improved in passing over their previous agility. and I think it does wonders for the team. It's really good. Next up is Gutter Runners, and I have nothing bad to say about Gutter Runners. This is one of my favorite pieces in the game. They do one thing, and they do it exceptionally well, and that is dodge down the field with their movement 9. They are often unstoppable, and you will see a lot of frustrated players across the table. I think Gutter Runners are surprisingly really good blitzers, too. I think with access to Dauntless or Horns, that Strength 2 can really turn into a Strength 3. And when you combine that with something like Wrestle, Strip Ball, you can make pretty good ball hounds. And I really like building my Gutter Runners into one of 2 types. Here. Okay. All right, here's some real talk. I wanna talk to you guys one-on-one. We're gonna address something that has been an issue in Blood Bowl for 20, 30 years. And that is, do you build a 1-turn score on a Gutter Runner? And the answer is no. Don't do that. Don't make a guy who's just all eggs in one basket trying to score in 1 turn. That guy's not only going to get killed because you didn't give him defensive skills, but he's a gimmick, and it's not going to last throughout a whole match. In a league, it's funny. Okay, all right. In a league, it's funny. You can make that 1-turn score. You can give him sprint, give him 2 heads, make him run down the field. But without block, without wrestle, he's kind of a liability. So most of the time, you're not fielding him. Then you're playing Skaven with only 3 Gutter Runners, and that's you're gimping yourself if you do that. So instead of sprint, which I don't like, we're going to go 2 guys with Wrestle, Strip Ball. If we can get them Horns or Dauntless. And then 2 guys with Block, Sidestep. So here's the thing. What are the cool things you can put on a Gutter Runner? Because really, it's a good caddy for all kinds of cool skills. Something people talk about sometimes is foul appearance. Is that good defensively? I don't think it's reliable, so I don't love it. Plus, if they have a reroll, they're going to burn it because their odds are so good to pass it the second chance. Block is mandatory, either block or wrestle. If you're putting wrestle on your Gutter Runner, he probably shouldn't have the ball. So that's your guy that's going to have Strip Ball. That's going to be your ball hound, getting through the thick of it and trying to take down your opponent's ball carrier. If you've got block on him, some other options there are Sidestep. I'm iffy on Sidestep. I think Sidestep is really good on stunties for positioning. Honestly, over Sidestep, Fend is another good pick that I put there right next to it as far as something useful. I don't like shadowing on Gutter Runners. It's too easy to just push them away from you or throw a blitz on them and then just walk away. I don't like Tackle. I'd rather take Strip Ball. But Tackle makes more sense in very high TV tournaments, especially if you're going to be playing against people in a league that's going to run long. But it's more likely than not, you're not going to keep those original Gutter Runners. Yeah, so really, I think the stuff you're looking for is 2 ball hounds, Wrestle, Strip Ball, maybe Tackle, Horns if you can get it, Dauntless if you can give them another skill, and your scorers. And you want block on those guys. 2 heads is really good. And then you can look into giving them either Sidestep or maybe Fend if you want to play a little defensively, where you can make sure you can put them in safer positioning. Yeah, but Gutter Runners are awesome. You should be able to score 2 turns over and over with your Gutter Runners. Now I'm moving to Skaven Blitzers. Okay, so this might be kind of strange. I'm kind of 50-50 on the Blitzers. I know what they're there for. I know what they're supposed to accomplish. But are they really helping you all that much? These are caddies for your Mighty Blow, for your Claw. They start with block. They still have that movement 7. A little bit of armor for survivability. You're going to be using them to remove opponents' pieces, get guard where you need it to be to throw better blocks, and basically be the muscle of your team to kind of work through the pitch. I don't always think they're that relevant. I think a lot of the time you're going to see these guys doing the same thing a lineman would do, but a little safer. But is that worth almost being double the cost? I mean, these guys are 90K. You could fit almost 2 clan rats in that same spot. Sometimes, honestly, I'd rather just have more bodies. The difference of being knocked out with block armor, 9+ versus 1 lower armor and no block, not a big difference. Maybe it's a big difference. It's probably a big difference. My personal feeling with the Skaven Blitzers is they're an integral part of the team. They're really cool. You can build them into something that really supports the rest of the team. But if you're playing like me, which is very gutter runner dependent, and I'm trying to stay out of tackle zones, I don't want to throw a lot of blocks. I don't want my opponent throwing a lot of blocks on me. I don't always have a lot of use for them. They're really just a blitzing piece. And sometimes I don't want to blitz with them. I want to blitz with something stronger because I really want to break through my opponent's lines and start funneling my gutter runners into their backfield. And because of that, I feel like this is a great, strong, good piece. Kind of expensive for what it does. Kind of not always important. For a lot of the tournaments I've attended, I didn't take them. A lot of the reason for that was I couldn't afford them. At $90K, they're a pretty expensive piece. And I could do the same thing with the line rats. So really what you're looking at is, do you want to build a team that's more balanced, that can play more traditional Blood Bowl? Or do you want to go for an all-out offense gutter runner play? And then you don't really need them, because you don't need guard. You don't need claw, because you're not really throwing them any blocks. You're not going to out-casualty your opponent anyway. So sometimes, leave them at home if you can't afford them. Or just take one, and he can be your dedicated blitzer. I think that's a stronger case than always trying to fit in two of these guys, especially if you're limiting yourself on gutter runners. I think gutter runners are the shining star of this team. Make sure you get 4 of them. I'd always start with 4. You're going to develop faster and better with 4 gutter runners than 2 gutter runners and 2 blitzers. They're just not going to be scoring for you. They're not going to be removing pieces through casualties very fast. Gutter runners are how you're going to win games. It's how you're going to develop your team. It's how you're going to earn the gold to buy them later. While if you're losing games because you only have 2 gutter runners, it'll be harder to buy those gutter runners later because you spent, $180K on a toughness, an armor 8 clan rat with block. Yeah, I don't always think they're worth it. But again, if you want to play a traditional game of just get into the scrum of it and start throwing blocks, this is the only guy that can really do that effectively. So yeah, take him if you want to. Then we'll move into the Rat Ogre. Rat Ogre is kind of a strange case. For a long time, I think people didn't take him. They saw the Rat Ogre as fundamentally not synergizing well with what the Skaven are trying to do, which was run away, flood the field, try to get in the backfield, steal the ball. And then you got a big dumb, guy walking around who's not super dependable or reliable. And the rest of the team really needs to work in tandem to make sure they're accomplishing their goals. And if you have him, he's kind of letting you down. Thankfully, and I'll be honest, I subscribe to the idea that this change from what he had before, which is I think Wild Animal, to Animal Savagery was a downgrade. The last thing I need on my Skaven team is to help my opponent remove my own clan rats. What a disaster. Then, oh my God, you guys, then I played with him. And I gotta say, holy shit, he's awesome now. So sure, he can eat your own guys. That sucks. But he gets to do his move. No matter what happens, as long as you got some rats near him, he's 100% dependable. And that's exactly what Skaven needed. So yeah, I'm knocking down a clan rat. Big deal. Now I have a strength 5 frenzy blitzing piece, just absolutely wrecking balling through my opponent's line. The only thing people can do to deal with Skaven is to kind of line up and give you no avenues to get around them. Their goal is to pick up the ball with their thrower or whatever they got back there, get the ball somewhere safe, and then line up to make sure your gutter runners can't flood the backfield and go harass him. That's really hard to deal with a Storm Vermin or I guess they're just called Skaven Blitzers now. Because they don't have the strength or the frenzy to really push stuff out of the way. And you can only do one blitz, so you're really just moving one piece, one square. And you're probably still doing a dodge with those gutter runners, which isn't always reliable and isn't the safest thing to do. Now you have a strength 5 guy you know is going to get there, and he's going to push that piece 2 squares. Now you don't have to dodge with those gutter runners. So yeah, my main issue with Skaven is that my opponent plays defensively and I can't get the gutter runners through. The Rat Ogre solves that problem, and he solves it 100% of the time. Which is why, for the first skill, I don't like block on these guys. Juggernaut. All day Juggernaut. Juggernaut's going to push their blocking pieces. It's going to make sure you punch that hole. That's going to be a really important piece. More important, I think, than the Storm Vermin. He's going to be the guy that's going to make sure your gutter runners can get where they want to be easily and reliably. So, yeah, 100% I like the new Rat Ogre. I think he has a really solid role to fill, and he's better at it than he used to be. But again, he might kill your own guys, which is why I think a deep bench is really important for Skaven.
We're gonna blitz the Roger.
Okay. So.
That would have been hilarious.
Nope, and he fucking hit, pardon my French, he hits this dude. Already right off the bat.
What happens with the Rat Ogre? He's got that. What,
He's got to
Cattle
eat the guy
savagery
next
or
to
whatever
him.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked about how to deal with your opponent playing a more defensive strategy where he lines up against you. Rat Ogre deals with that. I've talked about how I like blitzing with the gutter runners against opponent ball carriers. I think they're better ball hounds than something like your blitzer or your storm vermin. I think clan rats are great, and they're better when you have lots of extra ones. So go for as many as you can. I think this team, more than almost any other team, got to get that apothecary as soon as you can. Sometimes I'd even suggest starting with apothecary on your initial roster. Another great benefit of Skaven is their rerolls are only 50k. You can really dump a lot of good rerolls into this team. Don't use them for your clan rats. If the clan rat's going to get hit, or he's going to die, or he's going to fail, let him go down. You're saving those for your gutter runners. You have to protect them. You have to make sure they succeed when they're trying to do something. And most of the time, they're doing something on a 2+ anyway. So that reroll is doing all the work it needs to do, which is just make sure you have 100% consistency with those gutter runners. The only real downside to Skaven, I'd say, is just a lot of low armor. They don't punch real hard. You can do some damage. With access to mutations, you can get stuff like Claw. You can get Mighty Blow on a few pieces. But I don't think dealing casualties is going to be how you're going to win your games. It's going to be running in circles around your opponent and getting those touchdowns. And the gutter runners are going to make sure that happens. Another downside of Skaven, their stars got nerfed, I think. Okay, another piece of real talk. Skaven don't have a star player. Like, they do, but they don't. When I went to Las Vegas Open, and I also went to a tournament in Vancouver, Washington, right outside of Portland, where I took no Rat Ogre, I took no Blitzers, and I took both Gutter Runner stars. So I had effectively 6 Gutter Runners and just a ton of Clan Rats. And those are some of the most fun games I've played. Sometimes it folds against a good opponent. That gimmick doesn't work. But when it did, I was scoring 6, 7, 8 touchdowns a game. It was amazing. Unfortunately, they lost access to Skitter Stab Stab, which is an absolute tragedy. Skitter Stab Stab was not that much gold. I think he was like 16, 14, something. I don't remember, but pretty low for a star. And he was really just a gutter runner with Pranzo Tail and Stab. Honestly, Pranzo Tail is really good. Because I don't have any tackle, right? So if I want to slow down a ball carrier or keep a piece in place, that would force my opponent to throw a block there. Obviously, I don't want throwing blocks on Skitter, but when he can walk up and stab things, especially things like War Dancers and Ghouls, he was really good. I'm talking a lot about a guy that's not in the game anymore. It's bumming me out, so we'll move on to the next guy, which is Hackflem. Hackflem has become a terror in modern Blood Bowl, and it sucks because I don't want to take him on Skaven. He does not help me do what I do better for his cost. I just think he costs too much for Skaven. It's really interesting because I think for the longest time, Hackflem was a Skaven-only star, and on a Skaven team, he was okay. He was pretty good. It's basically a gutter runner with 1 more strength and 1 more agility. So he was pretty effective as far as a ball carrier. I also like his special ability. The thing that was so funny, though, was not that he was, a good character for a Skaven team. It's that any team getting access to a gutter runner was crazy. So obviously, Chaos Dwarves, Underworld, everyone who didn't have a gutter runner before, all of a sudden did. And you just saw how much damage and potential for scoring he had. But on a Skaven team, he's not like that. You already have pieces that are pretty close to it. So for his price, I wonder if he's actually worth it on Skaven, especially compared to something like Chaos Dwarfs that need it so bad to be able to handle the ball. So honestly, I don't really love him. The only other stars we really have access to is the Black Gobbo, which is, I've got somewhere. I didn't glue them together. He came in a 2-pack with Grumbrindal. But yeah, I didn't glue them together because I don't. He's only moving 6. He would be the slowest thing in your team. He's strength 2. There's nothing that I do with him that I couldn't do with a gutter runner. The other thing is he's doing sneaky get, stab. I mean, he's fouling. And my belief with your Skaven is you're just not going to have key pieces down on the ground that often. So I don't really like fouling with Skaven, and I don't want to foul with him. The only other guy we have access to, I think, is the big orc guy, Varag Ghoul-Chewer, which allows Underworld Challenge. He's kind of like getting another Rat Ogre. He's strength 5. He has block. He's also got Mighty Blow, Jump Up, Thick Skull. Very much like a big guy. His special rule is once per game he can add +1 to the armor roll. I do suggest if you use that ability, don't use it to break armor with Mighty Blow. Make sure using it to break armor and then applying Mighty Blow to the casualty roll. Because the goal isn't to break armor. The goal is to do casualties. So don't waste it there. Make sure you're not combining that with Mighty Blow for armor. I already have the Rat Ogre most of the time. I'm looking for that Juggernaut Frenzy to get stuff out of the way. And this guy's only moving 6. I don't see him helping my team accomplish what I'm trying to do. So I don't like Varg. Hopefully in the future we get Skitter Stab back. I miss his guts. He was amazing. I'm sure they won't because they saw how effective Hacklam was on all those additional teams. Underworld don't need access to Skitter. That would just be a super cheap gutter runner, and that's what they're looking for. I liked overwhelming my opponent with too much high movement pieces, and it just might be too strong, like really in the current meta. Cool models. I love the GW models. They look great. The thrower could maybe be a little more thematic. I really like the Blood Bowl video game where it's got like almost a biomechanical warp stone launcher for an arm, which is really cool. Very Clan Scryer, very, very Skaven from the old game. But I think some stuff that people do wrong is they prioritize the blitzers over the gunner runners. I don't think you should do that. They don't prioritize the apothecary soon enough. I think you should really start with that. And with the cheap costs and the cheap rerolls, you can usually fit all those into a starting roster if you're in a league. If you're in a tournament, I still suggest a deep bench. I think you should be really running maybe 12, 13 players. Get an extra couple clan rats in the mix. Maybe set up one of your Skaven blitzers as an offensive piece. Give him tackle, maybe claw. Set up the other one defensively. You're going to give him guard. And he can go help out when he needs to. But most of the time, you really just want to get out of those big scrums. That's not a place where Skaven do well. The other thing is with Skaven, don't be afraid to dodge. I know they dodge just like regular humans, but don't be afraid to sacrifice them if you can just get better positioning. Just dodge them out. Just dodge them around the field. If you do 2 dodges with a Skaven line rat, sure, go for it. If he can be in a place where it's going to help you score, try it out. Worst case scenario, knocks himself out. Maybe he dies, but you've got a deep bench. You've got guys to replace him. And you also need to keep in mind something with Skaven that I really promote is score early and often. There's 2 things that are really common in Blood Bowl, which is stalling defensively or stalling offensively. A lot of the time, you'll see a weaker team like Skaven get stalled out because the opponent wants to beat on you and get some casualties. You are always a scoring threat. Your opponent can't sit back and knock on your clan rats as long as there's a gutter run on the field with something like wrestle and strip ball. He's scared. He's like thinking to himself, if I don't score now, those gutter runners will get to my ball carrier and he could score on me. So I need to score quickly in response. And because of that, you can get a lot of turnovers. So if your opponent starts stalling, threaten the ball. If you need to stall, it's difficult because you don't have the muscle to keep your ball carrier safe all the time. So just score. And the best part about scoring early and often and not stalling is that you get to set up more times. And hopefully you've got kick. You can put the ball where you need it. You can retrieve it with the gutter runners and you can score again. And you can rack up that point total. So I don't think this is a team that does well when you stall. I also think it's a team that's hard to stall against. The only time that falls apart is if you start losing gutter runners. When you're down to 1 or 2 left, or like, oh my God, like hopefully not 0, you're always a threat. So protect your gutter runners and do that with your apothecary and your rerolls. Screen well with your clan rats. Make sure they're all over the pitch and just make it difficult for your opponent to get to where they need to be. Just kind of gunk everything up. And if they start removing pieces, that's fine. You've got extras. You can throw them back into the pitch. Some bad matchups for Skaven. Really anything that's also fast that has access to tackle. So I'm scared of War Dancers. I don't like late game when I'm down a lot of bodies and they have something like Dwarves where there's a lot of tackle on the pitch. And then it becomes difficult because I don't have the bodies to screen. So when I have a lot of clan rats in the pitch gunking everything up, Dwarves are kind of worthless. Yeah, they have tackle and block and all the stuff my gutter runners are scared of, but he doesn't have the movement to get around him. So I feel pretty safe against something like Dwarves or Chaos Dwarves. But when I'm out of bodies, when it's late game, second half, and I've only got, 4 clan rats left? That's a problem. So that's why I think it's important to dodge out when you can. Okay, thank you so much, guys. I got some messages that said I should do another one of these, and I wasn't sure if anyone really cared. Yeah, I'm heading to the NAF Championship in Nottingham, England. So that'll be cool. I'm going to start some time in Scotland and run around the foggy moors. Yeah, so if I see anyone there, say hi to me. But because of that, I will be missing the Rocky Mountain Rampage in Utah that Brian 2 throws, which is bumming me out, but that's okay. I've been to a lot of them, and I'll be able to go to the next one. So I hope I run into you guys at tournaments. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day. That's stupid. I should come up with a cool closer, like a finisher that sounds cool. Like, don't forget to bring your dice.
Absolutely no sense for not including your kids. Absolutely no point in that. But I'm taking it. And I'm